Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Katie and I upload book-related videos every single Wednesday, and today I cannot wait because we are finally discussing the Big Little Lies season, or I guess I should say series finale, since there's obviously not going to be a season 2. As you guys know, I absolutely adored the book. It was such a surprise favorite for me, and I do have a spoiler-free review of the book, as well as a spoiler-free review of the first episode of the series where I talk a lot about my reactions to the casting decisions and everything like that. So obviously I won't just be repeating the stuff from those videos, so if you don't want to be spoiled and you want to hear my thoughts on both the show and the book, check either of those videos out. But this video is gonna naturally be filled with tons of spoilers since we're talking about the series as a whole in the finale. So spoilers for the show, spoilers for the book, you've been warned. Now in my reaction to the first episode, I already talk about the casting, the music, the cinematography, and how I loved all of that. But in terms of some other things I wanted to touch on that I loved, I actually ended up being really happy that they gave Renata her own voice in the show. I thought the show kind of humanized her a lot and made her less of a stereotype, so I was super happy with her. I also thought that the scenes with the therapist in the show were easily just the best part of the series as a whole. The interaction between Nicole Kidman and, I did learn the therapist, the actress's name, she was also in Deadwood, but I'm forgetting, but their scenes together were just brilliant, and both of their acting, not just Nicole Kidman, the other actress as well, were just fantastic. In the book, of course, those scenes are good as well, but I didn't close the book and think, oh, those therapist scenes were definitely the best, but looking at the show, it was just perfection in terms of those scenes. Did anyone catch the foreshadowing of the steps throughout the series? I did notice it, but I was kind of thinking, like, why would someone fall down the play steps and die? But I thought that was really well done. Now I'm gonna get into the things that I did have kind of mixed thoughts on and some of the things that I didn't like. Now because I already talked about in my first reaction video to the show a lot of the positive thoughts I had, I hope this video doesn't come across seeming like I didn't like the show because I loved it. I would give it probably a 4.5 out of 5. I really thought it was such high quality television. I hope Nicole Kidman in particular just gets nominated for all the Emmys, but this is kind of my one chance to talk about the little nitpicky things I kind of wish they wouldn't have changed, so just keep that in mind. Overall, I did really love the show. Okay, so first up is Tom and Jane. I want to talk about that because episode to episode, I was getting really concerned that they were just going to completely leave out that storyline. They do drop the hint that, like, oh, Madeline tells Jane that he's gay, so but it came up to the very last episode and I was thinking, nothing has happened still. There hasn't been the scene where Tom defends Jane, and I just kept thinking, I guess this isn't gonna happen. So although I was happy in the last episode they did include it, I wish that scene where Tom defends Jane had been a bit more, what's the word? I felt like in the show, if I hadn't read the book, it wouldn't make sense, honestly, why Tom's defending Jane, because in my opinion, you guys can disagree with me, in the show, I don't think Renata's husband is that out of line with Jane. He's basically just saying, don't hit my wife again. So it kind of felt out of place that all of a sudden Tom's becoming this he-man and defending her, when really I don't think she really needs a lot of defending in that scene. So I did prefer that scene in the book, but I am really happy that they did end up including their storyline, and I loved the line where Tom shows up to her house and he's like, I rode my bicycle here, but then I got us an Uber on the way there. In terms of the reveal with Max as the bully, I'm really glad they kept that consistent with the book, since a huge theme of the book is that idea of nature versus nurture, and how he's kind of adapting and acting how he sees his father act. So I'm really glad they kept it as Max, although I thought they made it kind of obvious. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the book Max never walks in and sees Perry hitting Celeste, or at least you don't see a scene like that. So I just thought it made it a bit too obvious that Max was the bully. Now getting into a point of discussion I've had with some other booktubers. I was talking about this with Heather over at Bookables, and we were both initially really upset that they were including this storyline of Madeline having an affair. I'll admit I was initially really upset about it because Madeline and Ed's relationship is easily one of my favorite parts of the book. When you think about it, it's really one of the only openly happy, good marriages in the book. So the fact that they threw in this affair just seemed really out of place to me. I did watch an interview with Reese Witherspoon, who, if you guys didn't know, I think she's the reason the show was made. She was also kind of behind Gone Girl and Wild. She wasn't just acting in those, she kind of read the books and then wanted them to be made into films and/or TV shows. I was reading an interview with her and she said that she wanted to add the affair to kind of humanize humanize Madeline, but in my opinion, I don't think Madeline needed any more humanizing. However, I will say that I ended up enjoying how they handled the affair a lot more than I thought they would. I know a lot of people were upset that in the end, it's never really resolved in the TV show, but I think that's realistically how things like that would probably play out in real life. So I overall ended up being a lot happier with how they handled the affair than what I initially thought. Now we're gonna get into the one aspect that, if I'm honest, this is like the one thing in the show I wish they wouldn't have changed. And in my opinion, the TV show just made Perry being the rapist so like banging over your head just obvious. They completely removed the storyline where Saxon Banks, I don't remember if Banks was his last name in the book, but Saxon is a real character in the book. He's Perry's cousin, although he never shows up in the book. So in the book, when Celeste finds out that Saxon Banks, or whatever his last name is, was Jane's rapist, and she thinks, holy shit, that's Perry's cousin, that brings up this whole dialogue of nature versus nurture. And is Perry the way he is because he was born that way, or is it because Saxon and him both grew up together and now they're both very violent and horrific towards women? So in the book, of course, you could have guessed, oh, Perry might just be using his cousin's name. I know a few people who guessed that, but in the book, I don't think it was ever 100% obvious that Perry was Jane's rapist. However, in the show, because they removed that storyline, there's literally no other option for it to be anyone but Perry. Especially because Jane even makes the comment when she mentions Saxon in the show, oh, well, he could have just been using a fake name. So right away, the viewer's thinking, okay, it's some guy in the show, he was using a fake name when he raped her. And then on top of that, when she goes and sees the interior designer, he looks pretty much exactly like Perry. The outline when they do the flashback looks like Perry, so there's just no other option for it to be anyone than Perry. So I thought the reveal of it being Perry in the show just wasn't probably as fulfilling as it was in the book. However, the show was so good and handled the ending, I thought, so well that it almost didn't really bother me at all. But yeah, I just wish they would have kept that Saxon storyline in, especially because it really wouldn't have added that much time. Now for my final thoughts, I want to talk about, of course, the finale, the murder scene. Now the first time I watched it, I thought, oh no, they left out my favorite lines, which is when Bonnie says, we see, we fucking see. And then actually my favorite line in the book is when Renata is the first person to say after he falls, I didn't see anything. And then, you know, Madeline repeats her words in the, so it's Renata who's really the first one to kind of bring the women together in that way. I really like that aspect of the book, and I'll admit the first time I watched the end scene, I was like, oh, I wish they would have kept that in. But since then, I've changed my mind and I absolutely loved how they handled the ending. This is gonna sound strange and kind of morbid since it is a murder scene, but I've actually just gone back and watched just because I wanted to the last 20 minutes of the episode like 4 or 5 times. I actually think the silence and how there's no dialogue, and instead it's that really beautiful song, September Song by Agnes Obel. In case you're curious, that's what the piano music that's playing. I thought it was just so powerful and well done, and I've never been so tense during an episode of a TV show. A lot of people have been talking about how, oh, they wish that they would have included Bonnie's storyline and her background of being abused, and they wish she would have included turning herself in. Now, I don't have a ton of opinions either way with that. Let me know what you guys think, because I'll admit, when I was reading the book after the murder happens, and I think there's another like 100 pages almost, it did kind of slow down for me, so I actually really liked how the show ended. So those are my thoughts on Big Little Lies. Again, hopefully this video didn't come across as negative, but I already talked about the majority of the positive things I thought about the show in the video where I reacted to the first episode, but overall, this was one of my favorite miniseries of all time. It's probably tied with Top of the Lake if you've seen that. So also, if you guys weren't aware, one of my favorite books, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, is being adapted into a miniseries with the same director who did this miniseries, so I'm just over the moon excited. Gillian Flynn plus the director of this miniseries plus Amy Adams, who I think is going to be the lead character. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Although I'm super sad that the show is over, I thought it just ended beautifully. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys soon.